Dave Ramsey acolyte George Kamel recently put out a hit piece video on Index Universal Life. On the surface, the video looks like a ruthless expose of a financial scam that millions of Americans are falling for. But when you scratch just below the surface, his critique of IUL is revealed to be a steaming cesspool of half-truths and outright lies that is ultimately calculated to sell you a term insurance policy through a Dave Ramsey-sponsored term insurance broker. All right, let's dig into the video and debunk Kamel's claims one by one.
Hey, George Kamel here, Ramsey personality and financial expert. I'm also a millennial and social media aficionado, and I've been seeing lots of terrible financial advice all over social media. And the one that keeps popping up is this thing called universal life insurance. Now, here's how it's marketed. You know you're supposed to use your life insurance while you're still alive, right? And everyone's like, brilliant, an investing policy inside my life insurance. I'm gonna become a millionaire. And they're always touting this crap as secret wealth hacks of the rich. No. Hard no.
Okay, I'm somewhat sympathetic to what George is saying here. IUL is marketed by some pretty scammy people on social media that hold it out as a one-size-fits-all silver bullet panacea financial tool. It's the go-to investment for the wealthy, and if you want to get rich, you better fall in line. The problem I have with Kamel's approach here is that, like so many other IUL hit pieces, it conflates scammy life insurance agents with scammy life insurance products. You have to know that two things can be true at once. There are disreputable people using shady tactics to sell Index Universal Life, and IUL can be a suitable recommendation for some people in certain situations. But remember, financial gurus are not in the business of nuance. It's all about making sweeping black and white characterizations that fit neatly into their little tiny box. Let's keep watching.
Who actually benefits from Index Universal Life Insurance? Well, to answer that, let's break this down into bite-sized pieces and see what it's really made of. Here's what we're going to cover: what Index Universal Life Insurance is, how it works, and whether it's a smart money move or a money-eating monster. Let's start by defining Index Universal Life Insurance. Gosh, that is a mouthful. I hate it based on that name alone. Let's give this guy a nickname. We'll call him IUL for short. Okay, sadly, that's still just as annoying.
Okay, before he gets into the meat of his critique, George is already resorting to name calling. IUL is a money-eating monster. It's so bad that not only its name, but its acronym are enough to send shivers down Kamel's spine. Instead of using real numbers and cogent analysis, George resorts to the last refuge of the uncreative, ill-prepared interlocutor: name calling. Let's keep going.
IUL gets pitched as this really sophisticated, nuanced, it's so complicated you don't understand, just trust me, bro, I'm your insurance guy, I'm gonna make you lots of money, kind of thing. Really gross. But it really just puts a new spin on an old and terrible idea. And that idea is whole life or cash value life insurance. It's where you have an investment account and a life insurance policy rolled into one product. And it's something I never recommend because it tries to do two things at once and ends up sucking at both and costs way more than term life insurance. But more on that later.
Okay, here are a couple of themes we'll see throughout the video. First, IUL doesn't do a good job at investing. This is probably the single greatest logical fallacy when assessing the benefits of Index Universal Life. It's not designed to be a stock market replacement. It's designed to be a bond replacement. It has an extremely impressive track record of delivering between 5 and 7% net of fees over time. And that's without taking any more stock market risk than what you're accustomed to taking in your savings account. This is especially compelling, given recent studies that demonstrate that bonds are much more volatile and much more highly correlated to the stock market than was previously thought. The second logical fallacy is that the only purpose for life insurance is to deliver a death benefit. And naturally, if they're all designed to perform this solitary function, why not choose the one that can do it for the lowest price? This fails to contemplate all of the other utilizations of permanent life insurance policies such as the IUL. Not only does the IUL serve as an extremely competitive bond alternative, but it's a great volatility buffer in retirement. Here's how it works. During retirement, you pay for your living expenses out of the cash value of your IUL and the years following a down year in the stock market. This gives your portfolio a chance to recover before you take further distributions. This allows you to as much as double your sustainable withdrawal rate on your stock portfolio to as high as 8%. Don't believe me? Take a look at this Ernst & Young study that demonstrates how you can dramatically increase your spendable income in retirement by allocating 30% of your retirement savings to a cash value life insurance policy like the IUL. And lastly, if you get an IUL with the right company, you can receive your death benefit in advance of your death for the purpose of paying for long-term care. And if you die peacefully in your sleep, never having needed long-term care, someone's still getting a death benefit, probably your kids or your grandkids. So there isn't that sensation of having paid for something you hope you never have to use, like with traditional use it or lose it long-term care insurance. But remember, if you're a financial guru, you can't afford to make these types of distinctions because you might unwittingly convince your following that real financial planning requires customized financial plans, not pithy aphorisms and broad brushstroke recommendations. Okay, let's see what else George has to say.
With IUL, you're specifically investing into index funds, hence the name Indexed Universal. Even if you're an investing rookie, you've probably heard of the stock market and some of the most popular indexes, like the Dow Jones and NASDAQ, with those little green or red arrows on your TV screen. Well, with IUL, a chunk of your monthly premium gets invested into index funds. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of investing in the stock market when it's done right, but this isn't one of those times.
Okay, this is really where George reveals himself to be a permanent life insurance neophyte. With IUL, you are not investing in index funds. You are linking the growth of your cash value to the upward movement of a stock market index. But you're not actually in the stock market. It's a huge distinction of which George is completely unaware. And if George whiffs on this explanation, what else is he getting wrong? Well, let's find out.
And don't even get me started on why investing with your life insurance agent instead of, an actual investment advisor is a bad idea. And here's the real catch with IUL. Your return on investment will always be slightly below the actual performance of the index. Why? Well, because the commissions and fees your agent makes by selling this crap are insane. And guess where those fees get taken out of? That's right, your investment account. Sound too bad to be true? It isn't.
First of all, George assumes that the only way to utilize IUL is through a life insurance agent. Well, guess what? I could refer you to any of 250 certified Powers Year advisors across the nation who are licensed to provide investment advice and IUL advice. Go to davemcknight.com if you'd like to connect with one. But secondly, he clearly doesn't understand how the IUL works. The IUL will have lower returns than a stock market index, but it's not because of the commissions and fees. In fact, when you calculate the average fees per year over the life of the program, you'll find them to be about 0.5% per year or less. Compare that to the A-shares that Dave Ramsey's SmartVestor Pro advisors are trying to sell you. In fact, in this video, I actually make the case that the IUL fees are its strength, not the liability that uninformed life insurance dilettantes make it out to be. Lastly, George neglects to mention that consumers, with very few exceptions, pay the fees on their investments out of the investment account itself. Any idea how Ramsey's SmartVestor Pro clients pay their investment fees? You guessed it, out of their investment account. Folks, fees are only a problem in the absence of value, and when utilized in the right context, Indexed Universal Life provides value that you simply can't get in any other way. Okay, let's press on.
And as you get older, the cost to insure you can start wiping out your entire premium every month. And that means you'll have nothing going toward the investment side of your policy. The insurance company will even start dipping into your investment account to cover the cost of your premium. And now you've got a real money-eating monster on your hands. With IUL, the two good intentions of life insurance and investing can end up canceling each other out.
What George seems to be saying here is that when you get old, the internal expenses in the policy will be so great that they'll consume all your cash value. This is a tired old objection that I've heard lots of times, but that isn't rooted in reality. The IUL's fees are higher in the early years, but they're much lower in the later years. But when you average them out over the life of the program, they're going to cost you less than 0.5% per year. To illustrate how an IUL's fees are structured, let's look at a policy on a 40-year-old male, best underwriting class, an initial death benefit of $334,076, contributing $20,000 per year through age 65 and growing at 7% gross of fees. Okay, let's go to the policy expense page of the illustration to give you a sense for how the fees are structured. You'll notice that the main brunt of the fees are experienced in years 1 through 10, with a slight drop in years 11 through 15. But watch what happens in years 16 plus. You're left with the cost of annual renewable term insurance and the policy fee. So when I say that the IUL's fees are higher in the early years and much lower in the later years, this is exactly what I'm talking about. For example, take a look at the expenses as a percentage of your first year's contribution. This particular individual contributed $20,000 that first year and paid $3,502 in expenses. That means their first year expense ratio was 17.5%. Hardly a good deal, right? Well, now let's look at the expenses in the 25th year of the policy as a percentage of the cash value. The cash value is now $1,332,364, while the expenses are only $2,568. That represents about 0.2% of the cash value. In fact, if you look at the internal rate of return, which is the best indication of the policy's average expenses per year, you'll find that it's well below the 0.5% I mentioned earlier in the video. That's lower than the least expensive 401k plans on the market. Let me put this differently. Entering into an IUL contract is a bit like getting married. You don't get married because you plan on being together for 5, 10, or even 15 years. You get married because it's till death do you part. So when George says that the IUL is a money-eating monster, he's fixating on the fees in the early years of the contract. If he were to look at the fees as an average per year over the life of the program, a much different picture would emerge. One that paints the IUL's expenses as lower than even the most cost-effective 401k plans. Let's keep watching.
Imagine paying a ton of your hard-earned money to an insurance company every year for the rest of your life. And if you actually want to use any of the cash value in your investment account, you have to borrow your own money and pay it back with interest. Your own money.
Okay, here George is very clearly conflating index universal life insurance with whole life insurance. First, he says that if you start an index universal life insurance policy, you're required to pay into it your entire life. That's how it used to work with a lot of the old school whole life policies, but it's not so with the IUL. I've seen clients front load these policies in as little as 4 to 5 years. In other words, when you buy as little life insurance as the IRS requires of you and you stuff as much money into it as the IRS allows, you can fully fund these policies within a very short period of time. Hardly the lifelong premium paying commitment that George makes it out to be. Next, George talks about taking loans out of these policies with confiscatory loan rates. While it is true that you do take loans from the life insurance company in order to gain tax-free access, if you use an IUL through the right carrier, you can get that loan at a guaranteed 0% rate. In other words, certain carriers charge you a certain loan rate, say 3%. But then they credit back your cash value at that same 3% rate, and they guarantee it in the contract. So when you take loans from your IUL, it ends up being both tax-free and cost-free. Hardly the nightmare scenario George is depicting.
If your investment ends up doing well and doesn't eat its own weight in money, at least your family can live on the extra investment money after you're gone, right? Think again, my friend. Here's the real stinger. Your family only gets the original amount the policy was worth. In other words, if you bought a $250,000 policy but ended up with an additional $180,000 in your investment account, your family still only gets $250,000 if you die. And with that, I ask, what's the real point of combining insurance with investing? If you said helping insurance companies make more money, give yourself a gold star and a high five.
Okay, once again, Kamel is conflating index universal life insurance with whole life insurance. What he doesn't tell you is that with the IUL, you have 2 death benefit options. The first one says that at death, your heirs get the cash value plus the amount of life insurance you're paying for in a given year. So in that sense, Kamel's example is correct. If your death benefit is $250,000 and your cash value is $180,000, your heirs will get $250,000. But what he doesn't tell you is that as your cash value grows, the amount of life insurance you're required to pay for actually goes down. So in the year you have $180,000 of cash value, you're only paying for $70,000 of life insurance. So your cash value, $180,000, plus the amount of insurance you're paying for that year, $70,000, equals your total death benefit of $250,000. This death benefit option works a little like a reducing term life insurance policy, which I would think would be precisely the type of insurance that Ramsey's outfit would prefer, given their strong belief that your need for life insurance diminishes as your net worth increases over time. But what Kamel fails to tell you is that there's a second death benefit option where your heirs get your cash value plus your initial death benefit upon your death. So if we use the numbers from Kamel's example, your heirs would get $180,000 of cash value plus $250,000 of life insurance for a total death benefit of $430,000. Now, there's only 2 reasons why Kamel wouldn't tell you about this second death benefit option. Either he doesn't know about it, or he knows about it but doesn't want to tell you about it because it doesn't fit into his anti-IUL narrative. And frankly, I don't know which one is worse.
So let's compare IUL with term life insurance, which is designed to keep coverage simple. Term life companies know the cost of insuring you goes up over time. So based on your age, the company looks ahead 15 or 20 years and offers you the average rate for the entire term. That price gets locked in throughout the life of the policy. No fluctuating premiums and no worries about a bad stock performance wiping out your policy. Sound like a smarter way to protect your family's finances? You'd be what's known as right.
Now George seems to be conflating IUL with variable universal life, where your cash value is linked to actual stock market investments known as sub-accounts. With IUL, your returns don't get wiped out if the stock market crashes. This is actually one of the huge benefits of the IUL. If the stock market goes down in any given year, the carrier simply credits you a zero. The IUL is precisely the financial tool you would want in the event of a stock market crash. Let's keep going.
And with all that money you're saving on premiums, you can invest the difference and build wealth on your terms. If anyone depends on your income, you need life insurance. It's there to replace your income if you die. IUL might do that, but it might also rob you blind before you ever see the benefits of it. Term life is the only type of life insurance that doesn't rip you off. So if you don't already have it, I recommend talking to Xander Insurance. They're a Ramsey trusted provider that has helped people find the right plan for decades. They've been covering me and my family for years now. So don't let another day go by without being protected. Get this stuff done and get it done right. You got this.
Okay, so this is where we learn that the entire purpose of this video to this point isn't to educate you on the evils of index universal life insurance. It's to get you to buy a term life insurance policy. But not just any old term life insurance policy will do. It must be a term life insurance policy sold through Dave Ramsey's endorsed broker of choice. In summary, George Kamel isn't really interested in whether or not you get the straight story on index universal life. If he were, he wouldn't have deluged you with such a massive barrage of lies, half-truths, and hyperbole. George Kamel's ultimate goal is to get you to take the money you might otherwise have allocated towards an index universal life policy and redirect it towards a term insurance policy from which Ramsey himself ultimately benefits. Folks, in the next 10 years, I'm looking to put 100,000 Americans on the road to the 0% tax bracket. If you would like some help implementing a balanced, comprehensive approach to tax-free retirement that shields you from the impact of higher taxes down the road, head on over to davidmcknight.com and click on the Connect with an Advisor button. I'm happy to refer you to an advisor in the Power Zero network that has been trained, vetted, and qualified personally by me. If you're a financial professional and want to learn how to become a certified Power Zero advisor, head over to powerzero.com and opt into my free video series. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them into the comment section below. I'll respond to every single one of them personally. And don't forget to click like, subscribe, and the bell so you never miss a video. This is David McKnight. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.